Have you ever wanted to ride a camel in the desert? It's a bucket list item for many people traveling to Morocco. And while it's a fun way to ride into a desert camp and feel like you're experiencing some local culture, most Moroccan adults never ride a camel. But that doesn't mean that camels aren't a part of daily Moroccan life, which begs the question, what do Moroccans use camels for? We spent 2 weeks traveling across this beautiful country, through ancient cities, snowstorms in the Atlas Mountains, and into the Sahara Desert to learn about all things camel. Watch as we walk through winding medinas to find camel butchers and experience Moroccan barbecue on the street. Discover camel wool woven into blankets and rugs by Berber artisans, and ride 6 hours through the desert to meet a nomadic family who helped us understand the importance of these animals to their way of life. We began our camel expedition with what we know best: eating. And we didn't just dip our toes into the water, but rather dove in head first. We'd flown into Casablanca and then trained to Meknes on the faintest rumor that you might be able to get camel barbecue on the streets of this city. We took off after breakfast and into the Medina to find a camel butcher, and after about an hour of wandering, we saw a floating camel head by a pile of meat. We had arrived. We learned in Fez 5 years ago that a hanging camel head is a sure sign of fresh camel meat. It's considered a delicacy and isn't eaten every day by locals, and so the butcher has to hang the head to show everyone that today he has camel. Meat isn't really refrigerated at Moroccan markets, so a head of the animal means it's been butchered to eat within the last few hours. So we'd found part 1 of our rumored camel barbecue, but part 2 was making sure that there was someone around to cook it if we were to order the meat. So we wandered around the corner, and sure enough, we found the right place. All we had to do was procure a bag of ground camel meat and bring it back to this guy, who would then turn it into a delicious plate of camel meatballs for just $2. With our vendors in place, we ordered a ½ kilo or 1.1 pounds of fresh ground camel meat. The butcher takes a piece of lean meat, a huge chunk of camel fat, which comes from the camel's hump, and he grinds it all together with bay leaves and other herbs, mixes it together with his bare hands, and sends you on your way. Then we took our grab bag of meat back to our grill master to have our meatballs made. And watching this guy is like watching an artist at work. He never stopped moving for even a second, constantly making meatballs with his hands, working multiple orders, and he took such pride in his work, always smiling ear to ear as he doled out plates of meatballs to each of his serviced customers. The Moroccan barbecue is always made in these individualized grates that hold the meat together and keep each order separated out from the others. After just a few minutes, our meaty lunch was served with the side of Moroccan khobz bread in a table on the street.
Come by, Daddy.
Oh, that's not mixed through all the way. This should be interesting.
Oh, it's a little rare.
Is he? It doesn't taste dissimilar from a beef burger, honestly.
Do you like the camel? Does it taste like ground beef? Is it too much meat for you or not?
Yeah, give us a ½ kilo, so this is like a pound of camel meat. We went big. Thank you very much. Thank you.
And instead of letting our first ever pound of camel meat settle into our stomachs for a day or two, just to make sure that it agreed with us, we decided to pile on by having some slow-cooked camel meat that night at our riad for dinner.
Girls, look at that. I'm about to have camel. I'm weaving to my bread, and I didn't eat it yet because I'm going to put some camel onto the bread and then I'll eat it.
In talking to the cook who had prepared our camel, we learned that because most camels are not raised for their meat, but rather they're used as work animals and then later killed for their meat, the meat can be very tough. That's why the butcher added so much fat in with the lean meat to make our ground meat for the meatballs. Lean chunks of camel need to cook slowly for 8+ hours to tenderize properly and begin falling apart a little bit more easily.
There was some camel on her plate.
I'm probably odd in that I cannot stand any fat on meat, so I actually enjoyed this because it was very lean.
Amazing. I think it's the best food I ever had in my life.
Next, we moved on to Fez, where we wanted to take a stab at making our own camel dish. We walked through the souks around midday looking for the signature camel head sitting outside a butcher shop, which we eventually found. Another day, another half kilo of raw camel meat. We would later realize that if you want a good piece of camel meat, the afternoon is not the time to get it. Since everything is butchered fresh in the morning, all of the best cuts are sold in the morning. And we should have been a little bit more hesitant of the fact that the butcher was only working on cubing up the leftover fat. Anyway, we bought the pieces that no one else wanted from the morning rush and took them back to our house to make a camel tagine for our dinner that evening. Just before we left, we saw this sign, which made us think they may also sell camel milk, something we'd heard was a delicacy. He gave us some camel milk that he just poured out of another plastic bottle into this one that he had just dumped the water out of, so I think he was drinking out of this beforehand. I will be heating this to a very high temperature and then tasting it later on. Camel milk. Super excited. This stuff sells for $10 a liter though, which is super expensive, about 10 times the price of cow's milk. So we just got a quarter liter to try back at our house. We finished grabbing everything we needed for our camel dish. Carrots, some couscous, and some dried apricots and prunes. Then we made it back to the house for a quick camel milk tasting. We have no idea where this milk came from or where it has been, so we are gonna try to kill all the germs by giving it a nice boil. All right, girls, you excited?
Yes.
Camel milk?
Ready?
Chin chin. Chin chin. No spilling. All right, ready? 1, 2, 3.
Daffy.
It's got a radically different flavor.
Yes, it's very different. It does not taste like normal milk. It tastes like, it doesn't taste like cow milk.
It doesn't taste like cow milk, no.
Does it have funk? Is it?
I've always thought that the more natural milk is, the more it tastes like a farm smells. And this one gets a 10 of 10 for farm stank. Good? Bad? Pleasant?
Bad. Pretty bad. Not
Pretty bad.
pleasant at all.
Not a fan?
No.
I said it's not pleasant at all, but she loves it and she's gonna keep drinking it.
That's what we call it. So good.
Hurts so good! The healing powers of camel milk.
Mom,
Now it was time to face our pretty mangled looking pieces of camel meat to see what we could throw together in about 3 hours, far less than the amount of time that everyone had told us it takes to cook the meat. We're going to be trying our hand at making our own camel tagine. We had hoped this tissuey, fatty chunk of camel would cook down and become tender, but honestly, we weren't holding our breath. We clearly had gotten a bad piece. One of our favorite things about Moroccan food is the use of cinnamon in savory dishes. We spiced the meat and seared it in the pan.
I do not like how much fat is in here though. I pray that cooks off.
Next, we got the vegetables chopped up and loaded into a pot with some tomato paste, water, spices, and dried fruits. Then we transferred everything, including the seared camel meat, to the tagine, which is like a Moroccan Dutch oven. Here, the dish cooks low and slow for as many hours as you can spare. Once the girls were up from their nap, we whipped up the couscous, then loaded it all into our display tagine, with the couscous beneath the camel, vegetables, and fruits. Then we all sat down to enjoy a chilly dinner on our terrace. We're gonna dig into our camel. Really not sure if it's gonna end up being tender, but at least the apricots and the prunes will end up being good.
And the couscous.
Creamy couscous. All right,
Should be.
ready? In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
that meat's actually good. You should try it. Try some meat. The meat's actually good.
Which piece looks better? This piece or this piece?
Those are both actually pretty good. You found some good ones in there.
I tried.
It's better than what I had earlier.
That's edible.
I think if we had had a leaner, larger, like less tissuey piece of meat, it would have been better.
It's not very
But the flavor of the dish is spot on.
The flavor is excellent, and I think the longer you cook it, the better. Oh man.
That's what I'm not going to eat.
I thought this meat was gonna be like the baddest meat I ever had in my life. Well, I will never eat this again. But actually, it turned out amazing. So this is really good. The meat is not really bad. So I'm gonna try some more.
Next, we learned how camel skin is used for leather and how camel's wool is used to make traditional Moroccan rugs. The Chouara Tannery in Fez is legendary across the world for being not only one of the oldest, it's operated since the 1100s, but also for its natural processes and quality, having historically been traded all around the Arab and European markets for 1,000 years. Camel, sheep, goat, and cow hides are brought to the tannery to be colored with natural dyes, the most expensive of which is saffron, used for making yellow leather. They're then turned into coats, poofs, shoes, and bags for mostly tourists. Camel leather is considered premium, having incredible durability that is scratch resistant and makes it naturally water and fireproof. Next, we headed to check on a rug shop we'd wanted to return to for 5 years. In 2020, we had visited this shop that had the most beautiful rugs and blankets with traditional Berber designs, and we had really wanted to pick something up. But at the time, we had put all of our stuff into storage and were traveling homeless and weren't in a position to be collecting anything. But now, having a home, we were eager to return as we've always dreamed of filling our home up with curios from our travels. Our friends from Berber House, a shop with no website or Google listing, showed us rug after rug, just as they had done for us in 2020. There were so many colorful masterpieces, but we were determined to get a raw camel wool piece that featured the natural colors of wool. Some of their rugs are made in the shop by their in-house weavers, but most are made in the high Atlas Mountains. We saw several pieces we liked, but nothing perfect, so we decided to think on it and come back in a couple of days. When we returned, they immediately laid out a piece that had just arrived that morning from the Atlas Mountains.
This is interesting.
I actually love that
You
one,
like that
Taylor.
one?
We didn't see that one
actually
last time.
worked pretty-
A natural piece with brown and black camel's wool, with a little undyed sheep's wool as well. Now we had a piece for our home after 3 visits and 5 years of stewing on the purchase.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
The curios begin. It seemed like fate that after 5 years we returned to a blanket that had just been delivered from the mountains, as if specifically for us. These rugs and blankets are made by Berber nomads who rely on weaving these products not as decorative throws, but as the walls, ceilings, and floors of their homes. We drove 12 hours out to the Sahara Desert from Fez. It was a remarkably varied drive, leaving the old city, passing through a snowstorm in the mountains, and seeing monkeys on the side of the road. The roads even closed due to the unusual amount of snow.
Not the Moroccan desert weather I thought we'd be getting.
I didn't know we were gonna see snow in Morocco, did we?
No.
We eventually came out of the mountains, through an oasis and past Merzouga, close to the Algerian border, to our camp. The following day, we arranged to meet with a nomadic family to have a Berber lunch and understand more about their use of camels in their daily lives. We had very little details about our journey to reach them, but met our guide and our 2 camels that next morning. We mounted our camels, snapped a couple of photos, and headed out into the desert for an undetermined distance to reach our nomadic picnic.
Did you get enough breakfast, Camel?
Did you eat enough breakfast? Well, it's like sitting on a camel. You're not a hard walk. Camel, are you guys gonna be okay? Turn to us if you need anything from us, and we'll stop the ride, okay? And then you can eat off the bus. Do camels eat buses?
We were told that generally only children, women, or the infirmed are riding on top of the camels, and for that reason the saddles are really just a blanket or a pile of blankets. And ironically, that's actually what makes it very uncomfortable. There's no structure and there's no footholds of the saddle. There's really no way to support yourself, so you're left squeezing your legs pretty tightly to stabilize yourself on there and to keep from falling off, which really starts to wear on your legs after hours. As we passed different structures, we kept thinking that we were close, but continued riding past the dunes and into the rocky desert. Eventually, after almost 3 hours, we arrived at our nomadic family's home.
I feel like I'm walking like 10 man. Oz, can you move? Oh my gosh, can I do a lunge? Let me see, I might fall down.
Then our Berber family let us glimpse a bit of their lives, out in the harsh and unforgiving desert landscape. We were told that visibility during the common sandstorms becomes only inches before your eyes, while this wind-whipped and dusty day was just a normal day. The young girls invited us into this tent to have our picnic. Berber pizza cooked in a sand oven with a side of mint tea, the perfect desert meal.
So yummy.
They hosted us in their bedroom, which is made up of entirely camel wool blankets and rugs that have been weaved by their mother over many years. The following day, we'd visit a nomadic village, where we could see the woven rugs used for barriers and insulation more closely. The most commonly used material is camel's wool. Because, like sheep's, it provides insulation, is generally water resistant, and dries quickly. Camels are actually shorn in the winter, unlike sheep, because their layer of wool actually protects them from the sun in the summer months. These sweet girls took us in with open arms, made us a delicious lunch, and played with our girls for over an hour. After about an hour with these wonderful children, we had to depart to make it back to our camp before sundown. These camels are supposedly adapted to being able to carry a large load up to 25 kilometers a day, and on this day we pushed them to the limit, going almost exactly that distance. Riding a camel for 6 hours is no joke. It really hurts, and that's partly because they're not intended to be ridden. Nomads often use them to transport their belongings, not themselves, to new locations.
All right, how do you feel? 5.5 hours?
I'm walking so stiff. I literally am like the Tin Man. My hips and knees do not move right now. I mean, oh my gosh, each step so painful.
We arrived back at our camp as the sun was setting, ready to take it in atop the dunes.
You like it here?
Yes!
You want to run with me again?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
I feel extremely dehydrated actually after being out in the desert all day. Haven't had a drink of water since breakfast. Riding on a camel for 5 or 6 hours is no joke. Your legs work and it hurts.
Hey, Daddy. I'm thirsty.
You thirsty?
So while a camel ride in the desert is fun, it has no basis in how these animals are actually used. They're sturdy, semi-wild working animals that can be used to move a house across the harsh desert. They produce healing, though extremely tangy milk. They provide nourishing meat, if you know how to cook it right. And they provide the insulation and barrier against the elements for the Berber nomads of Morocco. As a child, I was told that the 3 necessities for human life were food, water or hydration, and shelter. And in Morocco, the camel provides all 3 to their nomadic counterparts. They are an indispensable part of daily life for those living in the harsh and inhospitable Sahara Desert.
That's a backwards one.
All right, I'm officially getting super full.
Daddy, you want to play? Wait.
Go ahead, Lissy.
That's about as far as her arm goes. Yay!
Good job, Lucy.